fellas, no semantics today. Let's just get right into it because I am kind of pissed off, and I imagine a lot of Rays Nation is pretty pissed off right now, too. So, it's been a little bit while since the last time I uploaded a video, an Ace of Rays podcast episode. Mostly that's because I was away for a little while, but now I am back, and unfortunately now have had to sit through a couple of Rays games. So, this podcast is going to take a little bit of a different tone from the first two, because the first two were from a very happy, positive time where the Rays were the best team in baseball since May 20th, and we're hitting, and we're pitching, and we're destroying opponents, good and bad. Um, and now they're not. And now they have lost three straight series. This is being recorded on Saturday ahead of the finale against Minnesota, which is on Sunday. A game I'm not going to be able to watch anyway. Um, So yeah, let's talk about the Rays. Let's talk about how they've done recently. I feel like it'd be kind of a stretch to go back to the last time I did a podcast episode and break everything down because really the only thing that's mattered has been the past three series for the Tampa Bay Rays. That started off with a series against the Baltimore Orioles. Didn't think anything of it when it originally, was going to start. The Rays at that point were coming off of sweeping Kansas City. That's pretty good. They only let one run up in that series, and everybody's feeling great about themselves because, holy crap, I mean, even for, a Major League Baseball team in general, forget a team that has historically had good pitching going against a team that is struggling to hit at the moment. Anytime you only allow one run in 27 innings is something to really hang your hat on. Then they start a series against Baltimore. The first game of that series, they lose 22-8. I'm not upset. I'm not very upset about that game, and I'll tell you why. Because to that point in the season, the Rays had they had rarely lost with, giving up a ton of runs. I mean, earlier in the month, the Miami loss. Earlier that same week, the Detroit loss. But that was kind of, you know, I don't want to say a fluke, but at the same time it was. It wasn't one of the normal relievers coming in. The Miami game was entirely on the team. Um, they haven't really lost many games with these blowout scores throughout this season. They've won a lot of blowout games. The one against Boston in April, the one against Houston last month, or that would have been 2 months ago at this point, May 31st. It's July now. The 1-2 games before that against Houston, 13-3. They crushed the Tigers in the first two games, made them look not like the Detroit Tigers before losing that last game of the series. And that is probably something I'm going to mention later in the podcast as well. So they lose this game 22-8 against Baltimore. It happens. It happens. I mean, especially considering, you know, who were the who were the pitchers in this game that led up 22 runs? Ryan Pepio, 4 runs in an inning and two-thirds. A little uncharacteristic. Starting pitchers, even really good starting pitchers, and I would put Ryan Pepio in that category. Sometimes they have bad outings. It is what it is. They take him out. Mason Montgomery gives up a run in an inning and a third. Not really impressed about that. That's kind of what he does. Orzi comes in. Eric Orzi gives up 3 earned runs in 2 innings of work. Not good. But another guy who you don't really expect that from. He's not necessarily a guy that comes in and does that often. This was sort of a one-off until it really wasn't last week. But this at the time seemed sort of innocent, right? Like 3 runs in 2 innings from a guy who's got a 2.57 ERA on the season as of right now. It was lower then. Edwin Uceta comes in, gives up 3 runs in two-thirds of an inning, and that's not really a head scratcher. That is kind of what we have come to expect with Edwin Uceta. Not really good. It seems like that Phillies game last year was the start of a downturn in his career, which I hope at some point he corrects because I do not like this. Forrest Whitley, who's not really with the team anymore, 2 runs, 4 total, 2 earned runs in 1 inning. Uh, Gervais, Paul Gervais, 1 run in a third of an inning, and then they give up and throw in Caballero, and he gives up 6 runs in an inning, and that's just sort of okay. Like, I don't care. At this point, you're losing 16-8 or whatever. Throw in whoever the hell you want. They throw in Caballero. He gives up 6 runs. Okay, whatever. You lose 22-8. You score 8 runs. That's good. That's something to really look up to in that game. The 22 runs, about half of it seemed a little fluky. Ryan Pepio not pitching well isn't something that we necessarily expect. So, okay, he had a bad outing. Eric Orzi didn't pitch well. Okay, move on. Next game. It's one game. It doesn't matter if you lose it 3-2 or you lose it 22-8. It's one game. The next game, they defeat Baltimore by a wide margin, 11-3, handing Zach Eflin for the second time this year a defeat. He left after 1 inning. Zach Littell, 7 innings of work, 1 run, 1 earned run. Good for him. The team won 11-3, so again, bullpen. The next game against Baltimore, they lose. And dang it, sometimes you just lose a series against Baltimore. How did this come about? Taj Bradley, 5 runs given up in 5 1/3. Tell me if you've heard this before. Kevin Kelly and Eric Orzi were actually great in this game through 2 2/3 innings. Only 2 hits allowed, no runs. So kept them in it about as much as they could. The offense just kind of fell asleep in this one, which happens from time to time anyway. I mean, you scored up to that point, they had scored 19 runs in the series. Sometimes you put up 1 run against the Baltimore Orioles. It is what it is. You lose a series. A guy, all right. So the next series, they're playing the Athletics at home, a place where they've been really good as of late. They hadn't lost a series at home since, let's see, since the Philadelphia Phillies series in early May. Since then, they beat the Brewers at home 2 of 3, beat the Astros at home 2 of 3, swept the Blue Jays, who, might I remind you now, are leading the American League East. How horrifying is that? Well, actually good, because I hate watching the Yankees lead the division, so it's better to watch the Blue Jays lead the division. Much rather that than the Yankees. So good on you, Toronto. Minnesota, they beat them 2 of 3, ironically. Um, Texas swept them. Miami, they beat them 2 of 3, and the one that they lost was that 11-10 nightmare. The Baltimore Orioles won 2 of 3. Actually, they split that one. So at least they hadn't lost the series since early May. And then the Detroit series, they won 2 of 3, despite having no reason to. So they hadn't lost the series at home since May 5th through 8th, when they got swept by the Philadelphia Phillies, when they were a different team than they are now, when they were a team that regularly were losing series, that had a losing record at that point. Actually, the Tampa Bay Rays were 5 games under 500 at that point, 16-21. And this seemed like a lost season at that point until they kind of went on a run. Didn't lose a series for about a month after that, pretty much. After the Miami series, the following week, anyway. Uh, and then, so they go into the series against the Athletics. Again, not having lost a home series since early May. They lose the first one, 6-4. And another one where it was a little uncharacteristic. Drew Rasmussen gives up 4 runs in 3 innings. The bullpen was great for the most part until Fairbanks wasn't. And the Athletics won that one in the ninth inning, 6-4. The next game, they lose 3-4. Not really a lot going on there. Shane Baz gives up 3 runs, 7 innings. Mason Montgomery gives up 1 run unearned. That winds up being the loss. The rest of the bullpen is fine. This was the extra innings game, so it was won in the 10th by the Athletics. That was also, anytime you're going against the Athletics and you have to face Mason Miller, forget it. He's just a really, really good pitcher. He has a 4.55 ERA this season, which surprises me, but he's just, you're not catching up to 104. That's just insane. So, okay, you lose that one. I'm a little upset about the first game of that series. Maybe not so much the second one. It's kind of just another sort of boring loss. Then they win the finale in that series, but barely. And then at that point, ironically, at the point where they had lost 4 or 5, which was before the finale of the Athletic series, I was kind of at peace with it. I'm never to say you're happy with losing 4 or 5, but it almost seemed like, okay, this is just a stretch of the season where they're not winning. Happens to everybody. It's happening to the Yankees now, and it has been happening to them for the last month. It's happened to the Dodgers earlier this season. It's happened to the Astros earlier this season. Everybody has a little bit of a slump. Maybe not 4 or 5. Maybe it's losing 3 of 5 or losing 6 of 10 or something like that, but everybody goes through that sort of a slump. Ironically, after the win was when I started getting a little bit anxious because the Rays carried a 6-2 lead into the ninth inning in that game, and it seemed like they were going to run away with the win. And I am very skeptical always of if my team has a lead late, regardless of the sport, whether it's hockey, whether it's baseball, whether it's whatever other sport you want to go at. I'm always skeptical because there's always a chance that somebody can come back, that the opponent can come back, especially with baseball, because baseball is not a timed sport. It ends when you get 27 outs. So going into the ninth inning, however, of this Rays versus Athletic series finale, I thought, okay, they have this. It's 6-2. There is no way they blow this. They come awfully close. They leave Eric Orzian. Don't dislike that decision. I actually think that was the right decision. They bring in Edwin Uceda. What? I'm sorry. Um, Ryan Pepio started this game, threw 6 innings, gave up 2 runs, threw 100 pitches, came out of the game after the sixth. Right decision. Kevin Kelly comes in, throws 1 inning, gives up nothing. Great. After that, I lost my place, but I think it was Eric Orzi. Yeah, it was Eric Orzi. Comes in, throws the first inning, was a shutout inning, spectacular, 12 pitches, 3 strikeouts, if I'm not mistaken. Second inning, gives up the home run. Okay, not ideal. Bring in Pete Fairbanks. Why would you bring in a guy with an ERA over 5 and a dwindling lead that is now 6-4, which is a save situation, and your closer, the guy that you have designed to come in and close games to get those saves, is not going to enter this one. It is going to be Edwin Uceda. What happens here? Edwin Uceda gives up 4 hits, gives up 1 run. Somehow, some way, the Rays find a way to squeak out a win in this one by the absolute narrowest of margins, which basically came on a ball 4 that the Athletics player swung at, which if he hadn't swung at it would have tied the game. So you almost win on your opponent losing rather than actually winning the game yourself. Even though the Rays really did win this game, they won it themselves. The offense did what they had to do. Josh Lowe in this one, who I've been very critical of privately mostly in the past, 2 for 4. Brandon Lau, 1 for 4. Okay, Yandy Diaz shows up, 2 for 4. Matt Dice had a great game. A lot of them had hits. Only Aranda went 0 for 4, and let's be honest, Aranda's the best hitter on this team, so you kind of give him a pass for going 0 for 4 from time to time. Taylor Walls, who I know is another guy Rays fans have been critical of for a little bit, 0 for 3. He was the only other one in that game without a hit. But again, Taylor Walls has actually been doing pretty good as of late too, especially with runners in scoring position. So they did what they had to do to win this game, and they just barely won this game, even though everybody performed as they should, except the closer, who is not the closer, and the manager. And this is when I started getting a little bit skeptical. And as I'm filming with this, we're only 2 games removed from that, but now I'm very, very heavily skeptical because of how these past 2 games have gone. These past 2 games have not been like the games the past week, where all shucks, sometimes you lose 2 series in a row to teams that are below 500. It is what it is. It's Major League Baseball. You lose series. This series This series is a head scratcher because this series we should be talking about the Rays having swept this series. There's no reason why we should not be sitting here, and this should be another boring episode where I talk about how great the Rays are. They had a little bit of a slump. They lost 2 of 3 in back-to-back series against 2 bad teams. But then they played the Minnesota Twins and at the very least won 2 of 3. But no, we're not saying that because Zach Littell gives up 1 run earned, 4 hits in 6 innings, 83 pitches, and he gets pulled for the same pitcher with a 5.59 ERA after the outing. Garrett Clevenger comes in, who's been pretty good for the Rays throughout the season. Not here. Basically blows a save. The Twins tie it. And then, again, Pete Fairbanks is not in for the 9th inning. Kevin Kelly comes in, and he gives up 1 run on 1 hit, a home run, and the Rays lose. Today, the day I'm filming this, Saturday, Taj Bradley, uncharacteristically as of late, seems to pitch very well throughout this game. Had given up 1 run earned in the 6th inning. He gives up a couple of base runners in the 6th inning. There's a runner on first, there's a runner on second, and if you're going to bring in any reliever in that point, it's got to be Garrett Clevenger, right? I know he ultimately takes a loss in this one. He's got a 2.7 ERA. He's been a great pitcher for them throughout this season. But at the same time, no, you don't take out your starting pitcher when he gives up 2 base hits or puts 2 runners on and then immediately strikes out the next batter. Sometimes your starting pitcher puts 2 runners on base, and he had only thrown 88 pitches by this point, and he was 1 out away from getting out of the inning. And if he had gotten that final out, which even if he gives up a base hit and the Twins score a run and you leave him in, more than likely he is getting the next out. I have watched Taj Bradley pitch. It has not been very good throughout this season, but I would have had confidence seeing how great he had pitched throughout this game. And then the fact that he let the first 2 runners on, Kyle Snyder came out and talked to him. He settled down. He got a strikeout. Leave him in. There is no reason to take him out. There was reason to take him out after he let the 2 base runners on, not after he gets the strikeout. I can't justify that. I can't say, oh, Kevin Cash might have been thinking this. No. The problem here, which dates back many, many, many years, talking about the first year the Rays have been good, which is 2018, this is about when this problem comes back to, is Kyle Snyder, who is the best pitching coach in MLB, Kevin Cash, who is one of the top 3 managers in the MLB, do not know how to manage their bullpen in key situations late in games. This has been most prevalent in Game 6 of the World Series in 2020. Blake Snell throwing the no-hitter, gives up a leadoff double, and instead of leaving him in on 70 whatever pitches, probably even less than that, Kevin Cash takes him out for a guy with a 4.5 ERA, if I'm not mistaken. Um, Not good, not good, not good. But that was not just Game 6 of the World Series. It's been very, very often since then, and it is a head scratcher every time. The Tampa Bay Rays in 2018, that was the first year they won 90 games. That was the first year they were good and they were competitive since 2014, maybe 2013. Um, they that season they win 90 games. They do it with one really good starting pitcher who wins the Cy Young Award, and that's about it. And a bullpen that comes in and does most of the rest. Nathan Eovaldi earlier in the season, but not later in the season because they traded him to Boston for nothing, by the way. They let Nathan Eovaldi, who was having a great season that year, walk to the Boston Red Sox, where he promptly won the World Series with them and helped them greatly on that quest. Um, they give him up for nothing. They didn't get anything, really anything in that deal that made much of a difference. They got a lot more in the Chris Archer trade, which everybody still talks about, than they did in that trade. And Chris Archer was not a good pitcher for the Pirates, as we all know. So if they give up Chris Archer for that much, you would have expected maybe a little bit more for Nathan Eovaldi. But we'll let bygones be bygones at this point. Um, but they do it in 2018 with one starting pitcher. They are struggling. They early in the season they went 4-13 to start the season. They were very, very, very bad to start the season. Um, they kind of slowly get better as it goes on, as Blake Snell kind of puts together this Cy Young Award winning season. But they're doing a lot of it with openers, and it's not really sustainable in the long term because the opener strategy and the bullet guy strategy, it's not really where you want to be. They're kind of doing it out of desperation, not really having any starting pitchers that can throw 7 innings, but at the same time, you're heavily taxing your bullpen. So this really only works if you have a good bullpen, which a lot of teams around the MLB quickly discovered after they started implementing the same strategy, after seeing that the Rays were winning with this strategy, but it didn't really work, and that's why teams don't really use it anymore. There are very few teams that still use the opener strategy. Ironically, today the Twins did use the opener strategy. But very few teams do it anymore because if you don't have a good bullpen, then it doesn't work because you're bringing in 5 relievers. And if one of them struggles, you're going to lose, especially if it's the guy you expect to go 3, 4, 5 innings. So teams don't use that. So the Tampa Bay Rays do this. They get a lot of starting pitchers. They get Charlie Morton, Tyler Glasnow for a little while, till he gets injured repeatedly over the course of the next couple seasons. Um, Ultimately, they wind up rebuilding their entire pitching core, full of guys, to the point where they have 8 potential starting pitchers for this season coming into last offseason. Uh, they get rid of Jeffrey Springs, which I still think was a bad move. And then they only have 7. Um, and they right now have 5. One is on the IL, Shane McClanahan. Um, so they have an abundance of this starting pitching. And to the point last week, a little over a week ago, that that starting pitching staff had pitched the most innings in Major League Baseball of any team. And I mentioned that maybe in both of the first podcasts on the series. Um, that look at us, like 2018, they couldn't string together 2 starting pitchers for the entirety of the season. Now they have 6, and one's on the IL. Uh, and then they don't use that starting pitching. Okay, Ryan Pepio gives up 4 runs in an inning and 2/3 and a fluke 22-8 blowout. Okay, what really, really upsets me is not even necessarily Taj Bradley today, but definitely, definitely partly that. Can't overlook that. Just can't overlook that. What really makes me upset is Zach Littell. Zach Littell is a guy who started as a reliever, transitioned to a starting pitcher, wasn't very good at it, got better, and became somebody who, in his last now 15 games, is 7-4 with a 2.88 ERA. In that span, that includes a complete game against Houston, where he threw 110 something pitches, 111, and several outings since then where he hasn't cracked 80. In his last, let's go back a little bit. Since the start of June, which was after that blowout against Houston, in which he threw 117 pitches actually and completed the game. 72 pitches on June 6th against Miami. 6 innings. They still wind up winning that game. Okay. I don't agree with taking him out. 72 pitches, probably not. But okay, I get it. It was after he threw a complete game. Maybe you don't want him in there throwing 80, 85, 90 pitches. Next game, 92 pitches. Through, let's see, 6 innings also. But he gave up 4 earned runs. So not necessarily good. The outing after that gives up 3 earned runs in 6 innings. That's not necessarily bad. I would draw the line between 3 and 4 as a difference between a good outing and a bad one. If you give up 4 runs and your ERA is higher than 4.5, I don't think. I mean, you're more than halfway to a run per inning at that point. Whereas if you give up 3 runs in 6 innings, first of all, you're still giving your team a real possibility of a chance to win, especially given the Rays' record when they score 5 runs this season is better than basically every team in Major League Baseball. 91 pitches, 6 innings. Maybe you throw him back out there for the 7th. He does wind up with a loss for that game. The next outing after that, that's the one that really, really upsets me. June 22nd. That was a Sunday game, if I'm not mistaken, against Detroit, the one that they lost. 69 pitches, 53 strikes. 5 innings, 1 run, 4 hits, 1 hit batter, no walks. 69 pitches, 5 innings, 1 run. They lose that game. Why? Because your starting pitcher, who was throwing a great game, comes out. You bring in a couple of relievers. They do not good at all. Garrett Clevenger gives up a 2-run homer, and then all of a sudden, the tie game, which was 1-1 at the time, is now 3-1. Which, by the way, the Rays wound up scoring 2 runs in the 9th. So if they had kept this a 2-run game, hindsight's always 20/20, but they could have tied it, and they would have tied it, I believe. But no, they go to the bullpen early, and then ultimately have to bring in the back end of their bullpen to finish this one, and the back end of their bullpen makes this look like a much worse loss than it actually was, a 9-3 loss. 5 innings, 1 run, 69 pitches. A guy with a 3.88 ERA, one of your most reliable pitchers this season. A guy who ultimately finished the month of June with an ERA of 3, who finished the month of May with an ERA of 2.88 in that month. He struggled in April, okay. His most recent outing, July 4th, at Minnesota, yesterday, the day I'm filming this. 6 innings, 1 run, 83 pitches. 83. Against Houston on May 31st, Zach Littell threw 117 pitches, 2 innings before that, he threw 103. Oh, and by the way, I kind of glossed over the fact that against Minnesota, the first time this season, he threw 72 pitches in 6 1/3. And they ultimately wound up winning that game. But again, 72 pitches in 6 1/3. They don't wind up winning this one. They don't wind up winning that one or the Detroit game where he came out early. 83 pitches. 83. When he's thrown over 100 multiple times this season. He's thrown over 100 twice this season. He's thrown 99 pitches another time. How? 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 How are you taking him out at 60, 70 pitches, 80 pitches in a game where he's given up one earned run and isn't necessarily walking batters, which he doesn't really do a lot of. He mostly pitches for contact, which is why he is such an efficient pitcher because he gets outs. He gets a lot of soft contact, a lot of rollover ground balls, gets a lot of double plays when he needs them. As a result, whenever he does let a runner on base, he is the most efficient Rays pitcher and probably the one that we enjoy watching pitch the most because those are the quickest games and those are the games that usually end up in wins for the Rays. At least when he's in to pitch more than 72 or 69 or 83 pitches. I don't get it. I really, really don't get it. It doesn't make sense. Maybe this is an overreaction. Maybe sometimes you do just lose 3 series in a row to teams below 500. Maybe sometimes you go weeks where your bullpen, which is a little bit depleted right now, but not really. You know, Manuel Rodriguez is out. That's a big loss for the Rays. Um, Everything else is clicking for them, and they're not relying in terms of pitching on that. Their starting pitching is top 5, if not top 3, in Major League Baseball. That is not a joke. Ryan Pepio, Zach Littell, Drew Rasmussen, those 3 could all be the ace on 15 other MLB teams. At least 15 other MLB teams. Any of the bottom dwellers, definitely, 100%. Especially Drew Rasmussen, who's had a great season thus far. Has had a couple of shaky outings recently, but for the most part, has been really good for the Rays throughout this season. And they're not relying on that. They're not relying on one of the top 5 rotations in Major League Baseball. How? How? It does not make any sense to me at all. So, let's look at what's coming up. Because the All-Star game is on Tuesday the 15th. Not that any of us really want to watch that. Fan voting was ridiculous. I guess we'll talk about that in a little bit too. That'll be your Devil Rays advocate for today. But before that, they've got a couple more series coming up. At Detroit, at Boston. Detroit, really good team. Team that they took 2 of 3 of at home not too long ago, 2 weeks ago to this point. And then at Boston, a team that had a little bit of a resurgence after the Rafael Devers trade, to everybody's surprise. Hasn't really done much since then, but right now is the last team out in the wild card race. As I'm recording this, 3.5 games behind the Tampa Bay Rays. But the Tampa Bay Rays do not occupy that last wild card spot yet. That is still Seattle. But if they really, and this could go many different ways, especially the Yankees have lost 6 straight to this point. Toronto's won 7 straight. Again, it looks like the Toronto Blue Jays, this looks like their division to win at this point, which is shocking that the Yankees have taken themselves so far deep at this point. And I still, you know what? I still think that the Yankees are going to wind up winning this division. Maybe I have more faith in actual Yankees fans at this point, many of them anyway. But I still feel like the Yankees are going to wind up winning this division. I think Toronto's on a winning streak right now, and teams get on winning streaks. They also get on losing streaks. Um, Baltimore was as hot as they could get like a month ago, and now they're kind of teetering a little bit. Cleveland was above 500 at one point this season, and they've lost 8 straight, and now they're 6 games below 500. The New York Mets struggled for a little while there, and they are now within half a game of the Phillies as I'm recording this, and have won 4 straight. Um, the Phillies have been hot and cold. Speaking of them, teams get on winning streaks, teams get on losing streaks. I want to think that this is just another losing streak for the Rays. Just another example of them just going 4 of 10 in a little space in the season. But I really just can't overlook how they've lost these games. It's not just the fact that they've lost them. On the surface, okay, you lose. So if the starting pitchers wound up losing these games, if Zach Littell was credited for the loss against Detroit, if, I don't know, if Taj Bradley was credited with the loss on Saturday, today, at Minnesota, I would be okay with it. I really would. I would be fine with it because they will get the hang of it. I have faith in the starting pitching. The relievers have been shaky the entire season, and that's been this team's Achilles heel throughout this little stretch where now they haven't won a series in over a week. As a team that is in the wild card as of right now, as a team that is fighting at the top of the American League East, that was half a game out from the division lead earlier this week with a win and a Blue Jays loss on, what was it, Friday? Could have taken the lead in the AL East, but they didn't. And that's okay. It doesn't necessarily matter whether they win the division or not. You're not going to win it in July, so it doesn't really matter. It's just the fact that it's not even the fact that they've lost these games, it's just how they've lost these games. It's been with the bullpen. And not only that, but it's been with a bullpen that they didn't need to bring in at the times where they brought in the bullpen. Doesn't make sense. It is entirely managerial. Let me give you a random scenario. Zach Littell goes out, throws 7 innings, gives up 2 runs, 3 runs. The Rays, who are swinging the bat very well at the moment, except for the Baltimore game, they've at least put up 3 runs in every game since the last time they played Baltimore in early June or in mid-June. A little bit hot and cold here and there, but it is what it is. And I think more than anything, they're just not getting hits when they need to. Still really good with runners in scoring position. The offense is not the problem here. The offense should not be on trial. Jonathan Aranda is now batting .315, which is a little bit lower than where he was earlier in the season, but is what it is. That's still incredible. Jake Mangum is now up to .310. Yandy Diaz is up to .287. Brandon Lau has a 20-game hit streak. Again, this is being filmed Saturday. .273 average. Josh Lowe, his average is up to .276. It was in the 250s not very long ago. Chandler Simpson, who they just brought up. Again, who they should have brought up a lot earlier, is batting .304. Very good replacement instead of Cameron Meisner. Shortstop, still been a little bit of a struggle. Ha-Sung Kim got injured again. Not really good. Junior Caminero, top 5 in the MLB in home runs. The offense has been great. The offense has given you everything you need to win baseball games. Even if they're not putting up giant numbers every game, they're getting it done when they need to. That's what really infuriates me about the Athletics game that they won. The 6-5 win. They put up 6 runs. They had a great inning. They put up 5 runs in 1 inning, and then they almost lose the game. What more do they need to do? They scored 10 runs against the Marlins last month, and they lost 11-10. That was starting pitching. Which, it is July, so maybe Taj Bradley figures it out again this July, but they put up 8 runs against the Orioles, and they lose 22-8. Doesn't make a lot of sense. They put up 5 runs against Minnesota, and they lose 6-5. What do they need to do? What do they need to do? Just depressing. Just depressing to watch. And now they are sitting 3 games at a division lead as I'm filming this. They're not even close. Tied with the Yankees for second in the division. And only 3.5 games above a team who they're going to play right before the All-Star break, which is the test. They play a 4-game series at Boston right before the All-Star break. That is a team knocking on the door of the postseason right now. They are, as of right now, 2 games behind Seattle. So they are looking for a playoff spot. They've won 2 straight. They've won 5 out of the last 10. That's a team that you have to beat. You have to beat. You have to win 3 of 4 in that series. You can't not win 3 of 4 in that series. Especially if you don't take 2 of 3 against Detroit again, which is going to be a tough task to accomplish. Anytime you play against a team that's doing really well over the course of a season, it's always going to be tough. I don't know if they face Tark Skubal in this series. They probably will. They didn't face him last time. So, yeah, it looks like they will likely have to face Tarek Skubal in the series. They probably won't have to face Cameron Mize again, so that's good. Actually, Skubal is pitching Sunday, so they won't have to face him. So it looks like that'll line up for them, hopefully. But you never know. And again, it's really, really tough to beat a team that's had a really good season to that point. But they're going to have to try. And at least they're not facing their 2 best starting pitchers, so that'll help too. But regardless of how that series goes, whether they can't get swept in that series. That's the one thing you can't do. You got to take at least 1 game in that series. You got to take 3 or 4 against Boston. You got to. Doesn't matter what happens. I could give you a record like I have the past couple of episodes where, they need to go, 4-3 or 5-2 in these next 7 games. It doesn't matter. No, the record doesn't matter. It's about who you're playing, right? You're playing a team in your division who's fighting for your spot. You gotta give yourself more distance between yourself and them. You cannot lose this series, and you can barely afford to split this series given the way they're performing now. The All-Star break could not come at a better time. So, that is what the Rays have to do. They have to find a way to start winning games again. They have to rely on their starting pitchers. And they have to collectively, their bullpen has to get better. Like, Edwin Uceda has to get better. I feel like they're going to wind up adding at the deadline, and they should. It would be really, really good to have Jason Adam right now. Like, really good. Um, I don't even remember who they got for him, but I guess they just did not consider the fact that they might be competitive the next year, even though that was kind of their goal. Um, this trade with Jason Adam was for Dylan Lesko, Homer Bush, and JD Gonzalez, who none of them are going to have an impact with the Rays this season. Jason Adam is somebody who could really have had an impact at this point where the rest of the bullpen is struggling. I don't know how he's doing in San Diego, but hindsight's 2020. So yeah, it'd be good to have more relievers right now, especially now that Manuel Rodriguez is out for a little bit. Hopefully he'll be back soon. I think I saw something that he's on his way back, so that's good. All right. I feel like there's no real point to the rest of this episode. Devil Rays Advocate, highlight hitter. I feel like highlight hitter is worth giving out to Brandon Lau. 20 game hit streak as I'm filming this. Just been really fantastic for the Rays. They've all been really good as of late. I mean, Jonathan Aranda not being in the All-Star game is atrocious, and fan voting for the All-Star game should not exist. Which, if you're, I'm going to go back on that, and let's make that a quick Devil Rays advocate. Fan voting for the All-Star game is the dumbest thing of all time because the fans of Major League Baseball are probably the dumbest fans of all of sports because they measure success based off of previous success. So a guy could be hitting 210, but if he is somebody who previously was really good, the fans will vote him into the All-Star game. If you have a big market where the television network and radio and every voice is telling you to vote for your All-Stars, like Los Angeles, and they're going to vote for their All-Stars. And then those All-Stars who are not better than other players are going to wind up creating an infield entirely of one team to start an All-Star game. And then the backups are also going to be the same from the same team, big market team, while players that are having amazing breakout seasons like Jonathan Aranda and Jake Mangum and Brandon Lau, who really isn't having a breakout season because he's been good, and Junior Caminero, who is top 5 in the MLB in home runs, are not all stars. How? I don't like the fan voting for the All-Star game needs to stop. That is terrible. That should have no impact on who is selected as an All-Star at all. The fans know nothing at all. The fans the fans can't even come to a consensus on what stats actually matter because some of them consider OPS as like the be all end all stat, the one that matters the most because it measures everything that matters in terms of how much you get on base and how well you hit. Some people still measure average as the best possible stat. I measure on base percentage and slugging, but separately because they're two completely different stats, and I think combining them is really stupid because it just paints less of a clear picture than even average does, because all you're getting is a random number that's composed of two other numbers. So like you could say Yandy Diaz, his OPS is 814. Okay, great. How much of that is based on slugging and how much of that is based on how much he gets on base? And then you have others who just consider, you know, the little things as part of what should be taken into consideration for an all-star. Stolen bases, RBIs, the real analytical fans, the fans that sit there and basically judge every pitch and think about the game while it's going on and aren't just watching as casual fans, but they're students of the game and they're studying the game as it's going on. So you have three different groups of people: people that believe in average, people that believe in OPS and power, people that believe in all of the little stuff, the analytical stuff. And ultimately, you wind up getting the casuals who don't care necessarily about the sport and don't watch enough baseball to know how their first baseman, for example, stacks up against other first basemen around the same league. And so we'll just hammer the All-Star voting to try to get their guy, even if they're having a down season, to the All-Star game because the television networks and the radio networks are telling them to, which is really dumb. A really dumb way of having All-Stars. Remember a couple years ago there was an All-Star game between the Atlanta Braves and the Texas Rangers, and that was it. And there was a moment where 8 Atlanta Braves were on the field, and pretty much at least half of the Texas Rangers who were selected All-Stars were on the field. Fan voting needs to stop for the All-Star game. It's ridiculous. I thought the MLB learned their lesson when this happened with Kansas City when they tried to send everybody on their team to the All-Star game, but apparently they haven't, because it's just as bad now as it was then, where you've now got an All-Star game between the Dodgers and the Yankees, even though the Yankees suck right now. And the Dodgers have not had a perfect season necessarily either. And an All-Star game devoid of players like Jonathan Aranda and Junior Caminero, which, by the way, if you take the casuals out and you only have the people voting on skill at some level, and ultimately people come to a consensus on whether power or average matters more, you can't have an All-Star game without either Caminero or Aranda. Either power matters, and Junior Caminero is at the All-Star game for his 21 home runs, and Jonathan Aranda too, because it's not like Jonathan Aranda is only hitting singles. He's got an OPS of 873. His slugging this season is 479, which is crazy. His on base is 394. Nuts. Not to mention 10 home runs, and he's driven in 45. But if you're going based solely off average and forgetting power, then okay, maybe Junior Caminero doesn't make it to the All-Star game. He shouldn't be a starter either way. He should be there if power matters. But if power doesn't matter, if it's just average, Jonathan Aranda should be there. Jake Mangum, who wasn't even an option on the All-Star voting site, you had to write him in, which I did many times. He should be an All-Star as well. He missed a little bit of this season injured, but he's batting .310 in 187 at bats, and he's played 53 games to this point. I think that qualifies him. 50 plus games with an average over 300. And his averages consistently remained above 300. I don't see how neither of them wind up there. Aranda or Mangum or Lau or Diaz or Caminero. I don't see how none of them wind up there. One of them has got to be there. And one of them is going to get robbed of a spot on the All-Star team. And you're okay with that. Because there are probably better players around the MLB who probably deserve a spot at second base rather than Brandon Lau in the American League. That's probably just a fact. And maybe there are better DHs in the American League than Yandy Diaz. But there are no better first basemen in the American League than Jonathan Aranda. And there are scarcely better outfielders than Jake Mangum, who probably shouldn't be a starting outfielder in the All-Star game, but I feel like he should be there. And also, the home run derby is really the only thing people tune in to watch anymore. So, wouldn't you rather see Junior Caminero at the All Star game? I don't know. That's just me. Just for that. For nothing else. Just the home run derby. Crazy. Just crazy. And really stupid. So, there you go. Fan voting for the All Star game needs to stop. Um, Highlight hitter, like I said, Brandon Lau. 20 game hit streak. You could give it to any of them. They've all been playing really well. Jake Mangum is another guy you could give it to. But Brandon Lau, um, for the second straight season, kind of started the season on not necessarily a good foot, but has been fantastic since June, since late May, really, especially with runners in scoring position. In his last 15 games, he has an average of 321, slugging 623, on base .379 for a total OPS that is over 1,000, which is nuts. And that's true, almost true of his last 30 games as well, batting .321, same average. Um, just a little bit less on base and slugging. But just in terms of the last 15 games, he's been absolutely killing it, which is kind of what you come to expect from Brandon Lau. And he's always been clutch for the Rays. Um, and he has continued to be clutch, especially over the last few weeks, even when they've been losing, but especially when they were winning. So there you go. Pitcher, primetime pitcher, or whatever I call it, that goes to Zach Littell. And the reasons have already been laid out earlier in this video. He's pitched phenomenal. He should have 3 wins in his last 3 games and should have a combined 21 innings pitched in those 3 games. And I should be sitting here saying in that span he has only given up 5 earned runs. But I am not, because he has pitched great games, and then Kevin Cash and Kyle Snyder have decided, let's go to the bullpen and to one of our worst relievers, and then they promptly, unsurprisingly, blow it. So, Zach Littell, he's your primetime pitcher. I already talked about the week ahead. You got Boston, you got Detroit, not in that order, but you got to win. You got to win against Boston. You can lose 2 of 3 against Detroit, as long as they're good losses. If they're not good losses, if it's again just blown leads in games that you should otherwise win, then no, you should win that series. But if Detroit just plays like Detroit's been playing all season and there's nothing you can do about it, then you accept losing 2 of 3. You don't accept getting swept. But you gotta beat the Red Sox in 3 of 4. You have to. You have to beat the Red Sox. At least 3 of 4. I don't anticipate a sweep. It's almost an exact number that you have to win 3 out of those 4 games. That's it. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you agree or disagree with me. Anything I said. I feel like I was being pretty, what's the word? I was trying to pick the center road and be objective the entire time, but it's kind of hard when your team is not performing quite well at the moment. So, let's hope the Rays can find a way to start winning games and series again before the All-Star break. This will probably be the last podcast until the All-Star break. I'm probably not going to make one before the game. Might make one after the game that comes out just a little bit early, but I guess we'll see. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Peace out, broskies.